Hi, it's Dawn with Yarn is a Sport. I am at the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival, and I found Mitchell's Wool Company. What caught my eye was their snarky t-shirt sayings, and I thought I'd enjoy interviewing them, and you'd like to find out about them. This is Sherry
Yep.
and Luke.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Sherry, you're the mom.
Mm-hmm.
And how long has the farm been in the family?
Like 5 minutes. We're first generation farmers. My background's interior design and advertising. My son Luke was a cop before we did this. Why did we do this? I learned to knit in 2018, and I thought it would be a logical step to have a couple of sheep in my backyard. My husband, Luke's dad, didn't think that was an awesome idea because we already had goats and chickens, so I conned Luke into getting 3 of them, and he owns a farm up the road from us, and I said, if you get 3 sheep, I'll knit you a sweater.
Still don't have that sweater.
He doesn't have the sweater. It's like 10 inches long. It's just... The thing is that the irony of getting sheep is that you no longer have time to knit. So 3 sheep became, my husband was facing retirement, and he had always run things, and I think he just couldn't fathom what he might be doing in retirement, and he's like, oh, well, let's make a yarn company. No big deal. I'll run the business. So I'm like, I think that's going to be a lot of work, but okay. So then in 2020, everybody makes life-changing decisions in 2020. The first sheep came off the trailer, and in 2020 we had 24
Yep.
sheep. In 2021 we had 46. By 2022 we had 78.
Yeah, at least 78. I lost count at that point.
This year, yeah, we started losing count. This year we lambed 76, and we're at 170. In 2021, my husband passed away of cancer, so Luke and I are running the farm now. I run the business and do the design. Luke does the farming. Cindy, my sister, who's hiding behind the camera, does the dyeing of the wool, and we dye only with plants. Our thing was that if we were going, so I am an unapologetic yarn snob. In fact, that's one of our t-shirts. So sort of the reason of why I got into this was I'm just kind of a tree-hugging hippie, and I wanted to have a connection to my yarn. I wanted to know the sheep that grew it, the farmer that raised them. I wanted to support local farms, and they existed, but I was kind of having a hard time finding them. So when we got into this, if we were going to make yarn, it was going to be climate beneficial, dyed with plant yarn. That's the only way I wanted to do it. Now, we knew nothing about that, but my sister is smart, and we were like, well, we can figure this out. I mean, how hard can it be? We've been crafting our lives. And as it turns out, it can be really freaking hard. But she's got it down pat, and now we have a beautiful rainbow of colors available through her blood, sweat, and tears. And honestly, I'm pretty proud of what we do. So that was a really long way of saying, how long have we been doing this? Not yet 2 years. November will be year 2. Or November 1st is our year 2.
Year 3.
No, we launched in November
Well, yeah, but we had
of
the sheep
2021.
prior too.
Well, yeah, we did. Okay, so
You gotta have the sheep the year
so the
prior.
business launched on November 1st of 2021. November 1st of 2023 will be 2 years. Does that math work?
Yeah, that's
I don't know. We're just tired.
Now, we talked earlier about another farm that's a vendor here, and they give tours, and I found them through Harvest Host. Do you guys do that as well?
We don't do a Harvest Host, but ironically, we just looked into it this week. We do farm tours.
We do field trips,
And we
farm
do
tours.
field trips. Field trips are a large part of what we do. We do at least 1, often 2 per month of the local schools. A lot of homeschool organizations come to us, and we do education programs with them. again, so kind of getting back to, I mean, it's a joke that we got into this because I learned to knit and we just jump off the deep end with our hobbies and making them into a business. But kind of the real reason of why we wanted to get into this was I had read Clara Park's Vanishing Fleece book. And my background is interior design, and I was an interior designer in the early 2000s when all of our textile mills were still in North Carolina. And they were being shipped overseas because of NAFTA and cheap foreign labor, and all of our textile mills were suddenly just closing, and all of these people in North Carolina and the South were without jobs. And I had then, got into knitting. I read Clara Park's book. It really struck home with me because having a background in fibers and textiles, I knew exactly what she was talking about, that there was a real crisis with that. And I knew that there was a fifth-generation family-owned mill just 40 miles from our house, which is Zeilinger Woolen Mill, and they're who spins our yarn for us. So it really kind of hit home, and I'm looking at this land. My husband and I had bought a horse farm, and it was at that time just having a few goats and chickens on it, and I'm like, we could do something with this land that matters. So that's sort of why we got into it, and part of that was introducing farming and its relevance to a younger population of kids.
A lot of kids don't know where their food comes from, where wool even comes from, fibers and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
a lot of our field trips deal with, do you know what comes from this animal? And we show the process going from shearing the animal, skirting it, all the way to what the finished product looks like. So we show them from the beginning to the end, and then what the animal made and that kind of stuff.
Or like when they talk about like, ooh, that's cow poop, and we'll talk about how important the cow poop is to the earth. The earth needs poop. The soil needs poop. That's what it eats to grow. And like teaching that to kids so that they understand their connection to the planet.
Now, I overheard you yesterday talk to somebody about trying to purchase and help other farms and producers in the field.
Yep.
Can you talk about that?
So that is our secondary line. So it's called American Fiber by Mitchell Wool. So we had farms in the beginning come to us and ask if we purchase wool, and for a long time we said no, we only use our own wool from our animals. But we learned about how much they're actually receiving for their wool from the co-ops.
And how much was that?
It's pennies on the dollar for what the wool is actually worth, what it takes to raise the animal, even to shear the animal. So they're not receiving a livable income by raising these animals. So if we don't pay our local smaller farmers a livable wage, they're going to close, and then all we're going to have is corporate farms. So by purchasing these fleeces, we save them from going to a co-op, which could potentially send them overseas. And we're going to keep it in America. It's milled in America, it's dyed by us, so American Fiber by American farmers itself. So we partner with smaller farms to bring American Fiber to our customers. We also purchased a mill's worth of wool from a mill that was closing in Maine. So we were bidding against corporate farms, corporate people from like England and China, trying to keep it in America. So that's what our first offering is Rambouillet that's been dyed with botanicals.
So like this yarn right here is from the farm of actually one of the people who works for us. So a neighbor of ours, she has 3 sheep.
3 or 4, yes.
Yeah, just too few to be able to process. Even it can't go in with ours because we're breed specific. So we went to a small local micro mill, ran this. It's her farm specific under our American Fiber line, whereas it's 20 pounds of wool. There's no way she could get that to market otherwise. So it's just kind of extending our reach of our mission.
Because some small wool farms might take them 2 or 3 years to get the amount of weight they need to send it to a mill. So now they're just sitting on wool or fleece, and they can't use it. But we can take it and add it to a breed-specific group. So if we bought a bunch of Shetland, we can put all the Shetland together, knowing which farms they came from, and let people know what farms those are, but we can add them together as a breed-specific yarn to bring to people.
Without, you can list them if you like. Which festivals do you attend? How many? You can list them. And which are your favorite?
Ooh, favorites. Boy, that's like picking
well, we
children.
Well, let's do favorite as far as which do you think is good for people that haven't yet attended. I mean, personally, Rhinebeck to me is just overwhelming. I don't
That's
think
the
I'll
big,
ever attend.
yeah, like that's like Disney World. I totally get what you're saying. We do a total of 9, right? So we start in Ann Arbor because we're in Michigan. So we started in Ann Arbor. That's a great local show for us. Then we, this year we went to Yarn Centric in Maryland, which is the day before Maryland Sheep and Wool. Then we don't do anything else for the rest of the summer, primarily because our lambs are born end of February through middle of April. So we're tending lambs, and also that's when our fiber's coming back from the mill, and Cindy has to dye all that fiber, and we're talking like well over 1,000 pounds of fiber, and so we're really busy throughout the summer. So this is the first real beginning of our show season. We just did Flock Fiber Festival in Seattle. We drove all the way to Seattle.
Well, that was the first year for that.
Yes.
It was the first year, and it was a phenomenal show. And that was a big risk for us to drive all the way to Seattle from Michigan. It took us 4 days. It was almost 6,000 miles of a trip. It was a phenomenal show, though. I would highly recommend to anyone who goes because it was a beautiful collection of really well curated vendors.
Wasn't overwhelming.
Wasn't overwhelming the way that Rhinebeck is. I mean, Rhinebeck is a really cool thing in and of itself. I would drive there simply for the maple syrup cotton candy. But I get it. Rhinebeck's big and it can be scary. I'll be honest, and I'm not saying it just because I'm here. This is one of my absolute favorite shows of the season. And the reason at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool, and the reason it is because there's still a really huge focus on the sheep. And some of the other fiber festivals and even state shows have kind of really, I don't know if like they don't have so much of that in their community. Like Michigan does not have an active sheep trialing community and sheep shows. Like the local fairs do it, but fiber festivals don't, and that's a real disappointment because how can you get young kids interested in it? Before we walked in here, we were looking at the sheepdog trials, and we went out and took down the name of a Tarpey breeder and things of that nature. So I really enjoyed this because we're going to be biased. We love the Midwest because we're Midwesterners, and the Midwest is so friendly. But I love that there's sheep here. So next week we're going to Young's Jersey Dairy in the middle of Ohio. It's in Yellow Springs, Ohio. That's another really favorite show of mine because the people that run it are so nice, and it's again a really nicely curated show. After Young's is Ann Arbor again. Ann Arbor is a spring and a fall show.
Indian Tangled.
Then Indian Tangled at Rhinebeck. We'll be helping out Zeilinger Wool at Rhinebeck. Then we end our season at New England Sheep and Wool in Massachusetts, and that's a new show for us.
Yeah, that's the first year for us. Yeah.
So that's the last weekend in November. So we do 9 in the course of a year, and that is in addition to farming.
So if someone were coming for the first time, would you suggest this one then?
Like if they were going to choose one show to go to throughout the world? I mean,
in the Midwest.
In the Midwest, yeah, absolutely. Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah. Hands down. It's just such an approachable, wonderful, easy show to get to. Yeah, completely.
I did we went to the Michigan
Fiber Festival
at Allegan a couple weeks ago, and I liked having the historic village, and it was family oriented. But you're right, this one is definitely more sheep oriented and emphasis on the wool.
And I think it's important to really, we're farm to skein, and we have always been, we've always said that our yarn is the byproduct of what we do, and like for Flock's sake is a double entendre. We're a snarky family. That's how we roll. But it really is for Flock's sake. Everything's about the sheep. We work for them. it's sheep first. To be completely honest, we've had hot, wet weather, and we're battling parasite illness at home, and like, it's not easy to be here right now because we've done everything we can for them, but like, they're suffering.
We got sick and sicker.
We've got a couple sick sheep at home, and in my opinion, I don't see how you can have a fiber festival without sheep. Because when you take away the sheep, you don't have anything.
And you have people that are back at the farm taking care of that.
Yes, we do. And
So-
without them, there's no way we could be here.
I want to thank you guys. I learned a lot. I'm excited. I want to wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It was
Absolutely.
great talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.